Mugetsu is easily one of the most iconic transformations in the Bleach franchise. Even outside the community, it is, dare I say, obvious that it boasts tremendous power, but due to the form's fleeting nature, the extent of this mysterious sacrificial power is still unknown. In this video, I will shed more light on it. With that being said, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and enjoy the video. To understand the true power of Mugetsu, it's vital we first make sense of this transformation as a whole. Mugetsu is the embodiment of the Soul Society's treacherous history, one of uncountable lies and deception with a dark truth tightly concealed. Unlike most power systems across shonen, Bleach's primary one is actually, in fact, its secondary. The use of Zanpuktos and the concept of the balancer was something later created by the Shibas with the aid of the remaining members of the 5 traitors during the Soul Society's inception as a method of ensuring the preservation of souls. But in fact, before that, it could be inferred that all warriors were either ancestors of the Quincy's, monks of destruction as they were formerly called, or functioned somewhat similarly. Tapping into this primordial power system I like to call reason, something devoid of supernatural functions that completely removes souls from the cycle. This power was used as a means of self-preservation, and the need for sacrifice is something that, in spite of all attempts by the 5 great families to rewrite history, consistently lies at the crux of the greatest powers in the series. Just to list a few: Shinji's Bankai that reverses logic is a danger to both friend and foe. Kuriyashiki's of unparalleled, indiscriminate destruction came at the cost of the ability to use Bankai and Shikai for 6 entire months. And of course, the laughably ironic contradiction that is Yamamoto's Bankai, something which passively threatens the existence of every being and the very home at which he wishes to protect. Heck, the spirit class of captains ensures their condemnation to hell, but nothing better personifies abandoning all powers for one true sacrificial power like Mugetsu. With the core theme of Bleach being to stay true to one's soul, Ichigo realized that unlike any of his other transformations, albeit it took several months of training in a Dangai, the superficial desire to uphold the expectations of others did not and will never be the source of his power. It was time for him to stop fighting himself and stay true to his soul. You would think Hueco Mundo would have made it very obvious to him, but no. The piece of his heart he subconsciously suppressed in fear of once again losing his agency, his killer instinct, he embraced alongside the fear of stagnation. And by truly accepting every aspect of his being as one, he obtained the form wherein he becomes Getsuga itself. Of course, in exchange for this largely unmatched power, he sacrificed one of the most important aspects of his identity, the means that allowed him to protect those whom he cared about. Beginning with speed, as we discussed in the previous part, Bleach mid to high tiers traveling at thousands of times the speed of sound isn't particularly far-fetched, especially considering the fact that both Varsay Lord Ichigo and Ukiura are able to perform massively hypersonic plus feats individually, and the likes of Toshiro can move clouds at subrelativistic speeds. However, the quote-unquote issue comes in with the introduction of a character known as Gin Ichimaru. Gin has been a subject of controversy in the community for many years due to a misunderstanding of one particular statement during his interactions with Ichigo. And what better way to usher in a new era of Bleach speed than to abolish the dregs of the past? Basically, the argument is that Gin says his Bankai moves at Mark 500, and Ichigo quote-unquote struggles to react. Gin then goes on to reveal that he lied about his Bankai's extension speed and length, therefore Bleach is at best massively hypersonic. This is a laughable and frankly fallacious hasty generalization of fake Karakura Town speed and what actually took place here. First of all, Gin doesn't affirm the most critical part of this argument, what exactly it is he's multiplying, whether it be sound itself or the clap, not specified. And to this, we actually have confirmation in the Unmasked, written and signed by Kubo himself, that the thing being multiplied by 500 times is actually Gin's clapping speed, which is supposed to be horrendously faster than sound. But seeing as sound is very recognizable and an easy benchmark of speed, he used it as a comparison. What's even crazier is that in the first unveiling of the Bankai, in which he bisects the town following his misleading story about how he got the nickname Kyaponzashi to distract Ichigo from his extension speed, this clap is actually supposed to exceed that speed. So you might be asking, how fast did Gin cut the town? And to that, we can actually knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. As we know, Gin says that he lied about 2 things to Aizen, and again, a false dilemma is typically committed here. It is inferred that when Gin lies, he's referring to what he said specifically to Ichigo, which even saying now doesn't make a whole lot of sense considering he was very blatantly holding back against the subconsciously suppressed Ichigo. However, we actually do have bits of information that give further credence to what Gin is referring to, and that being different to that of his interaction with Ichigo, based on the fact that the distance Gin's Bankai extends when displayed to Ichigo is confirmed to be true in a dialogue, and the fact that after multiplying his speed by 500 times, he's still able to double his speed beyond its current extension rate, it can reasonably be concluded that the benchmark in which he lies about to Aizen, whom he reiterated countless times to be above that version of Ichigo, would logically be greater than that. These two things can exist without contradiction. So as we know, Gen's Kamishini no Yari extends 13 kilometers and bisects Karakura Town in an instant, something which is typically synonymous with a second, and in certain scientific contexts shares the same level of temporal precision. Ichigo actually reacts to this attack fast enough to bisect Karakura Town from an incredibly small distance, requiring Ichigo to move just shy of 2% the speed of light, meaning that a suppressed Bankai Ichigo is already strong enough to rival Toshiro's Bankai feat. On Gen's end, it means that his Bankai moves at a bare minimum 2% the speed of light, which is consistent as it's faster than Ichigo's initial reaction, but it's also considerably harder to deal with as opposed to the first instance due to the lack of telegraphing. For those of you that don't know, it's something that just describes the unintentional signaling or indication of an upcoming attack or movement, as Ichigo was able to see the attack spin Karakura Town first, but this, not so much. Ichigo then begins to react to this speed reflexively, being fast enough to outrun its flexibility as the Japanese rules calls it. From here on, Ichigo alludes to having lost hope, which causes Gen to switch to the Buto stance. Now Ichigo is able to dodge Buto by moving at 3.5% the speed of light, and in response to Buto Raging, which actually doubles in both speed and attack potency, Ichigo dons his mask to tank the attack. Now we know very well how holification works. Ichigo has to pull his hand down from the top of his head, following which he would be at least 2 times faster than his base Bankai. Remember, whilst actually donning the mask, he's still in base Bankai, so this shows that in that same form he's able to move at anywhere from 25 to 79% the speed of light. So he is in the relativistic to relativistic plus ranges of speed at this point, and whilst holified, he'd be in the rel plus to FTL speed tiers. To make this even more consistent, allow me to introduce you to a meta I call the superhuman drug meta. During the battle between Mayuri and Saizalaburo, we learned that within Nemu, Mayuri hid a very special drug known as the superhuman drug. This chemical was inspired by a phenomenon that occurs when two master swordsmen fight. Their swords appear to move in slow motion, and time seems to slow down for them. Yes, we're talking about time dilation.
I knew it!
Mayuri's goal was to induce a similar effect in anybody, so at least their perception could be in sync with the movements of a master swordsman, and as such, even a bullet would appear to hang frozen in the air to the untrained eye. And to anyone who knows the first thing about Mayuri, it's that he's very cautious and has a very inquisitive nature. He is a man who will quite literally experiment on a person until they're reduced to goo. But more importantly, Mayuri believes that information gained from books is merely that. His belief only comes from having obtained proof with his own hands, and as such, given that Mayuri believes in this phenomenon so much that he would use it as his win con in a pivotal battle, suggests that he'd already tested capable master swordsmen that exist within the series. And via Arcum's Razor, we can conclude that it would encompass characters like Yamamoto and Unohana. Now, to what degree? We can apply this nifty equation of time dilation to estimate the speed required to make 1 second feel like 100 years. Plugging in the values, we get dizzyingly close to the speed of light, practically the speed of light in fact. This coincides with how fast we determine characters like Gin and Ichigo were, so once again, this is very consistent. And with this, we reach the fastest feat during this arc. Surprise, surprise, it is the final Getsu Tensha. Mugetsu in Japanese is actually a compounded word comprised of 2 kanji, mu, meaning nothing, or lose something as in nakusu, and ski, the kanji for moon. The other meaning is of course mu for the loss of, and getsu, referring to Zangetsu. What's very interesting about the moonless sky translation is that it is also impertinent to how the ability not only functions in regards to its consequences, but how it affects the environment. There is a solar event in particular that makes the moon appear as though it were removed from the sky, and that is in the total solar eclipse, wherein the moon completely covers the sun, casting a shadow over some of the Earth's surface, making the Earth appear as though it were enveloped in darkness. In this same sense, upon releasing this technique, the entire world is enveloped in darkness. Spirits of Forever With You actually goes on to confirm this idea when a character named Roka attempts to copy this technique, and in doing so, with just a far cry of its original power, not even being able to utter its name, she envelops all of Hueco Mundo in total darkness. Now, not only does Ichigo do this, but the sustenance of total darkness, as we know, is usually not possible due to things like the albedo effect, atmospheric scattering, and achieving a perfect black body would need to be done before things like spontaneous emission, stimulated emission, and other emitting processes could occur based on our current understanding of thermodynamic equilibrium and quantum mechanics. So after the name is called, you see one double spread and total darkness. The act of ensnaring the whole world in a second, taking into account the stratosphere distance, surface area, the emission point, Boston formula, we actually get a speed of 7.71 times the speed of light and likely higher. And once again, this is not far-fetched by any means. Keep in mind, Ichigo went through Dangai training after having already performed rail-to-rail plus feats in Bankai and absorbing the complete power of Vase Lord infused Tensa Zangetsu, converting it all into physical ability, making him at bare minimum 20 times faster than his previous feat using the Vase Lord multiplier, as I explained in one of my previous videos. In terms of AP, there are a couple ways to scale Ichigo. The first is Toshiro's moon level feat, which base Stark scales to. Now, a lot of people don't actually know this, but in Spirits Are Forever With You Volume 2, page 57, it's actually stated that by combining with Lily Net, Stark's power actually multiplies by several times. And then when you consider the resurrection multiplier that is likened to that of Bankai, Stark would be at bare minimum 9 to 15 times stronger than Toshiro on the low end, putting characters like Ichigo in these small planetary ranges of power just in his battle with Yami, let alone Gin and Aizen. Within reason, it could even be asserted that after the Dangai training, base Ichigo would have to be around planetary. However, where things get really ridiculous is when we reach the transcendent tiers of power, particularly when it's stated that Aizen obtained the pinnacle of power, that is, the Soul King. Unfortunately, due to the fact that this statement is made before certain feats actually exist in the series, we'll be determining the significance of this statement based on anything in or predating the Fullbring arc with which these dialogue statements were published, as well as Aizen's motivation. It's common knowledge that Aizen was going to stand atop the heavens after killing the Soul King, who centers all of existence, someone whose body, even as an undead carcass, was durable enough to prevent the world from immediately crumbling. But unfortunately, it's only after Fate Karakura Town that this is established to be literal. We'll deal with the upper echelons of Bleach feats in another video, including things like Mimi Hagi. But what we can say now is that Aizen would still have his baseline planetary scaling. Admittedly, this is pretty disappointing considering where Aizen logically should be, but just due to lack of feats and characters getting stronger throughout the series, there's very little more than this that we can actually justify. To make things worse, not only does the manga, but the novels and also even the anime make very consistent emphasis on the fact that Aizen would have failed had he tried to take down the Zero Division. Now, the other thing is Ichigo's statement about having the strongest technique, surpassing any power in the Soul Society, something which logically would encompass Kido techniques used in canon Bleach movies such as the Kido canon and Memories of Nobody, a movie referenced in the manga with covers and a comic written for the movie by Kubo, with statements regarding his involvement being referenced in canon novels that are connected to the 1000-Year Blood War anime, which is head supervised by Kubo himself, mind you. The point is, the information ties very nicely with our current understanding of the cosmology. Now, this technique was actually potent enough to destroy the entire naturally occurring Kyogoku dimension containing a star, and we actually can deduce this celestial body's stellar classification due to a number of factors. For one, the blue skies, which indicate Rayleigh scattering. 2, the cumulonimbus clouds, an oxygen-rich atmosphere. And we can also see that it is abundant with plant life and has a water cycle, seeing as Toshiro's Shorimaru functions perfectly fine on it. From this, we can deduce that it's likely a G2V star, and in scaling over the attack capable of overcoming both the gravitational binding energy of the dimension as well as destroying it with a single Getsuga, Mugetsu Ichigo would be at the very least star level. Now, you might be wondering, well, why don't I talk about Senna's feat, which is considerably more powerful than this feat that we were currently talking about? Well, Senna's feat doesn't actually take place in the Soul Society, and the whole point of these transcendent statements is that they're impertinent to things that take place in the Soul Society. Not everything that has ever existed. We're limited in our knowledge of what the Soul King is up until this point in time, which Aizen is supposedly supposed to be. Now, I don't think Ichigo just gets massively above Aizen. I think Aizen would still be in the dwarf star to small star ranges of power, just not the level that we were looking for. In terms of hacks, he possesses all previously discussed resistances alongside newer abilities like 4th dimensional AP and space-time manipulation, seeing as he can destroy Hardo 90 with his bare hands, something produced by a being who transcended the cleaner who governs time and space in the Dangai, a construct containing multiple temporal dimensions. He could arguably also have a resistance to reactive evolution too, but all in all, I think it's pretty clear that Mugetsu Ichigo is incredibly strong. Now that this video is out, I'm sure you guys will want tons of Bleach versus matchups, crossverse, and everything that will allow us to get into the really heavy hitting speed and AP stuff, because believe me, the series gets stronger and faster from here. So definitely leave some suggestions in the comments. I think it's about time I drop an Ichigo scale and a versus battle, but it depends on what you guys want. Comment down below. Follow my TikTok, request or donate to my PayPal if you want to support the channel. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.